Hello, my family. Another canning day, actually. So, I am going to, what I end up usually doing is I will can each day as I go along. If I see something that needs to be taken care of, I'll take care of it. And then there may be times where I'll have a break. I went harvesting this morning and found that I actually have some more greens to add on top, and I will show you how much we're working with. But on top of what I had frozen, so it's time to put these in a jar. The book that I will be using is the Blue Book Guide to Preserving. It will be out of this book. Now, I will say that mine are going to be mixed. You can choose to do turnip greens, collard greens, kales. Any of these greens will work with the same method that we're fixing to use today. I know I had some of you ask me how to do this, so I decided to go ahead. Instead of just doing it for myself, I'd go ahead and share it on a video on how to do it. It is really super simple. But for me, I am going to be mixing my greens. What do we do with greens that we can? We can use them for a side. You can add some bacon bits to it and some potatoes if you don't have any restrictions. This would make a great side. If you have restrictions, you could still use it in many ways. You can use it in a soup. For example, a zuppa toscana, eliminate some of the ingredients like the potatoes in it, put in turnips, or just leave it completely out, or you can add cauliflower. There are many different ways of using these greens, alone just like they are. Or another way, which most people don't know much about it, except for maybe the southern folks. There's a thing at one point they use what's called a poke salad. Now, poke is technically a weed that is cooked down like a green over and over. Now, no, do not can that. I will not advise anybody to do that. It is a process that needs to be taken care of to actually be safe to eat. But this is a safe alternative to that. And so what you would do is strain out your jars and then put them in your frying pan, getting rid of pretty much as much of the moisture as possible, adding some scrambled eggs, some bacon, and some onions. You can cook this in butter or in olive oil, however you would like to do. Add some salt and pepper, and you have southern poke salad. So these are just different ways of using your greens in different flavors in many different ways. So today, that's what we're going to do. We are going to can greens. And yes, I'm wearing my shirt, y'all. I absolutely love this thing. It works perfect, and I'm really proud to wear this. So we're going to get started, and I'll show you what we're starting with before we prepare. Okay, y'all, so here's what we're working with. I have 4 half-gallon bags of frozen greens that need to be canned, plus these 2 fresh picked this morning, so we got quite a few. Now, the interesting thing about greens, and you're going to find this as we go through canning these, this looks like a lot, y'all, but I'm going to tell you, this can turn out to be a small batch. They usually do. This is one of those ingredients that everything looks so big, but it comes down to pretty small, and those are one of those I had mentioned on our last canning session. If it's small, it counts. Don't cast it aside. Do it anyways. Everything equals up. The last round that I did, I had 5 jars. So is that a full canner for this big old canner? No, it's not, but it is worth it. So that's 5 jars on my shelf, and however many more this is going to bring me. So again, it will add up. So this is what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to set everything up, and we're going to go to canning greens. Okay, you're going to actually end up hearing the coils out here during this video. We, over the weekend, had separated at equal portions of everybody and the ratios, and we actually had more males than we actually needed. So these boys are separated right now. They're not happy, so they're calling the rest of the clan, and, well, they're going off, and they're going to be making their quails sound quite often. So y'all get to hear what they sound like. So one thing I did not remember to say the last video I did on this canner is, and please go based by your own preference from your canner. On mine, inside, there is a mark in here. The mark shows me not to go over that. The general rule, according to my instructions from my canner, was to adding 2 quarts of water to this canner. So that's what I end up putting in mine. So I'm going to fill this canner up and get it ready to get processing. I also have over in this corner here, which you will see in a minute. Well, let me see if I can bring you around just a tad bit here, y'all. Okay, so I don't want to make you dizzy. So in here, I'm heating up just a little bit of water because this is where our greens are going to go to wilt. And in here, I need fresh water, clean water, because this is what's going to be filling up our jars. So all of these are being prepared. I'm fixing to get my jars, get this started, put them in here to heat my jars, and be able to get my rings. So this is part of my processing. Then on all these greens, I'm going to be chopping these greens into pieces so that we can wilt them down and put them aside so that we can fill our jars. So this is what we're going to be doing, and then we could start moving on to the next. Okay, so I am first taking the greens that were frozen, and I am going to be rendering these down first, and then chopping these up in pieces. In the meantime, I also took my fresh. These have been washed. You want to thoroughly wash these, especially, and I'm going to get into that, other ways that you can actually have greens to can. But you want to thoroughly wash these, and then I broke these up in pieces, and I removed all the stems. So all stems need to be removed, and you want nothing but fresh greens that are ready to be put into a jar. Other ways that you can have your greens, if you are not able to grow them, I'm going to give you some other options that you can have greens to put on your shelf, because this is a staple for even every diabetic home. To put this on your pantry for the winter time is an excellent source. It will not spike your sugar. It's full of nutrients and vitamins and minerals. Something amazing that you can literally put there and know that you've got food on your shelf as well. So couple of resources that you can do this. If you find them at the grocery store and you find a good sale, grab a few of them. Grab a good mess of them, or even at your farmer's market. However, I will tell you, some of the grocery store greens, and maybe even some of the farmer's market, they will consist of a lot of sand in their product. So thoroughly wash it until there is absolutely no sand left. And matter of fact, do the washing machine brushing with your greens in water. Make sure that there is absolutely no dirt and no sand left. Now, mine doesn't have the sand, but I do wash them, and because we do grow out of soil. So, but those are options you can do as well. Just because you don't have a garden, folks, what we are doing on these cannings doesn't mean that you can't do this as well. There are ways, and I encourage you to find those ways. Look for those sales. Get your deals. If you happen to be blessed by somebody who gives you a good mess of greens, well, here you now, we are doing this video so you will know what to do with them. Now, you can freeze them, yes. Either way, you can can these or you can freeze these. Me, I would prefer to actually have the space in my freezer for my meats or my fish and my poultry, whatever. And then take my vegetables and put my vegetables on my shelf. Either way it goes, whether they are frozen or whether they're in a jar, they're going to come out the same in the end. They both have to be cooked, and they'll both be prepared in a meal the same way. So I am going to choose to take the space out of my freezer and put all my greens in a jar. So you're welcome to do either one. If you decide to freeze these, wash them, break them up in pieces, put them on a towel and kind of dampen them to dry them off just a bit. You do not have to parboil them or nothing like that. Just put them in a Ziploc bag, take all the air out, and store them in your freezer. So just as simple as that. That's exactly what I did with that bunch. But again, I'm wanting to save space, so I'm going to put everything in a jar. So I'm going to get the rest of this started, get my jars going, and we're going to get started. Okay, y'all, while these greens are cooking, I want to do another simple standard thing that most people may not know. One, you will find, as far as I am concerned, as far as this homesteader, this preserver, I've only been doing this for 4 years. So frankly, some people who have been canning for 10 to 15, 20 plus years, they would consider me a rookie as well. Now, I may know a little bit more than those who are just starting. However, I will never treat anybody who has been a veteran into canning or anybody who is just starting. I will never treat anybody differently. We're all in this together. We're all looking to preserve for our family. We're all looking to provide in any way we possibly can. So I classify us all the same. Now, with that in mind, there are many new canners nowadays, and I will try to explain to you, because I know this is one question that will come up all the time. If you do not have these books, these canning books, I will encourage you to please get the bulk canning books. They are safe for you to use. There are others, and I will tell you, like I've said before, I believe I did some canning videos about a year ago. June will be a year when I started this. So basically I will tell you, I only follow by the ball canning books. I'd rather be safe, but I don't condemn anybody else to do the method that you do. Now, how do you, and this is one of the questions that come up, is how do you know what foods to pressure can and what foods can I water bath can? And there are limits. And the reason there are limits is water bath canning does a good variety of foods. Anything that has acid, tomatoes, tomato sauce, tomato ketchup, jellies and jams, anything that has an acid, to pickles, anything pickled. These are foods that are water bath cannable. Anything that is non-acid, your meats, some of these vegetables that we're doing, like these greens, green beans, unless they're dilly beans. These are foods, anything with no acid, required to be pressure canned. So this is why you're basically limited, because if you were to be able to learn how to do both water bath and pressure canning, there is so much that you can do to preserve for your family and safely, compared to just being able to do one thing and to be afraid of one and not the other. Like I said, I really get that, y'all. And every time I do a low acid pressure canning video, I'm hoping that I can coach you into this. I told you, I promised you I would stay by your side, just as my mentor stayed beside me. There were many phone calls and many hours on the phone that she spent with me. So doing these videos with you is like me, like I promised her I'd pay it forward. So that's what I'm doing. I'm paying it forward to the best way I know, to the multitudes of those who want to learn how to do this, those who want to provide for their family, but aren't sure. And it's hard. Sometimes you'll get in some of these groups, and some of these people, they're not so nice. So I tend to want to be the person that I would like to be treated, and I would like to have done. If there was something I didn't know, I would ask, and I would hope that somebody would answer. So that's the person I plan on being through all my canning sessions. I want you to be able to have the endless possibilities that I have. I want you to be able to have your pantries filled with everything that you can possibly choose from and not be limited. So this is the reason why I decided to go ahead and do these canning sessions with you. And know you have a sister in Christ, you have a friend, you have somebody who will mentor, whatever. I am here with you, and I am going to walk you through step by step. I am considering at some point, when I get enough time, to be able to do a sit down live video with y'all, to be able to communicate, I don't know, I guess get to know each other, talk to each other type of thing, coffee break but live. I have yet to do a live feed with you, and so I'm considering it. it's different for me. I'm just now getting to a point where I'm getting slightly comfortable with these videos, and a live feed is a total new ballpark, but I am considering it. This way we might be able to communicate with each other, and maybe I can answer some of your questions that you may have at the time or whatever, and just get a point to know each other. So I've been considering that, so we'll see what happens. But let's get to canning, because I can see the steam in the back. So the first round of greens are just about finished. Okay, so I don't know if you're seeing this too well, but we have our water up. Now I did my first round of the frozen ones already and cut them up. What I like about doing this and breaking these up, they're harder to cut once they're cooked, y'all. So just break them up. It's easier to do this. It isn't going to matter either way. So I'm now just going to add my greens to this pot. I have just a little bit of water in here, just enough to keep them from burning, as the book says. And then we're just going to cook these down until, I'm hoping I'm not in your way, cook these down until they're wilted. I have another bowl to put in here, and trust me, these will wilt down enough to get all of them in here together. So we're going to get this one cooked down first, and then we'll add our others to it. Cover up my lid and let that cook down, and then we'll just continue to add until everything is done and everything is wilted. Okay, y'all, so now it's time to start filling our jars. Now you will find basically in all canning, it's a standard procedure all the way through, the same thing. We're filling jars, going to our required headspace. Now the headspace, be sure to look at your recipe books, and it will tell you some require a 1/4 inch headspace, 1/2 inch space, or 1 inch space. Spacing is very important when it comes to these recipes. Most generally what I found with pressure canning, all of the spacing is about 1 inch. I've rarely seen it any more than that. So just like everything else, we're going to take these, we're going to be debubbling them, filling them, and all that. So I currently have our hot water back here, clean, fresh hot water to add to our jars. It's on simmer. Be sure to bring that to a boil and then down to simmer. You want your jars warm when you go to fill this up, because the ingredients are hot. Now I'm going to show you how to do these, because you don't want to just pack these. There is a thing called too much density in your jars, and it will not get the inside properly. So you want to make sure that you have enough room that it can cook throughout your jar. Greens are one of those, and that's the reason why they even say for sausage, some meats can be the same way. You don't want to make meatballs and stuff like that. Some people do. I just prefer not to, unless it was a ball canning idea. I try not to do anything that compacts my jars because of that thought in mind. Remember, I told you I still am precautious no matter how long I've done this. But I want the inside of my jar, even in the centers, to get enough heat throughout the ingredients to make sure that nothing spoils. So how do I know how many jars to do? Well, that's a good question. So I am going to, if I end up with more, that's great. I can always take and know that, well, I heated my jars, put them aside, and I'll use them for another time. But I try to go a little over, so this way I know I have enough jars to fill. So we're going to start out with 4. I currently have 7. Now, if I need to add more, I will, but we'll see what happens, because greens do tend to wither down quite a bit. So now how I'm going to do these greens is I am going to use a set of tongs, and I'm actually going to pop these in my jars loosely, but I am going to, they say pack. What they mean by packing is filling in your jars. So I am just going to loosely fill my jars in, like so. I'm going to shake my greens to break them up a little bit, so this way I can keep them in my jars loosely, all the way up to the 1 inch space, no further than that. I Oh, we might get quite a bit out of this, more than I thought we would. That would be cool. Just a little bit more. I don't want to go too much in here. All right, there's my 1-inch space. And that's it. Now you can add salt if you want. If I'm not mistaken, it's a 1/2 teaspoon per pint jar and 1 teaspoon per quart. I don't add salt to my food. One reason I don't, y'all, is I will tell you, I have found that in the past that I have added salt, and it sometimes would enhancify that flavor. So I really try not to. If I'm going to season my food, I'd rather season it when I go to cook it. It doesn't do anything for preserving, it's just flavoring. So I'll flavor everything afterwards. But everybody's welcome to do as they wish. So if you want to add salt to this, by all means do so. If you want to add other flavors, you absolutely can. It's not going to change anything except for adding flavor to your jars. Alright. We've got a good mess of these, y'all, so I'm hopeful. We might not get 7, but we'll get quite a bit. I need to actually move this over here. I don't like doing it like that. We're just going to continue to keep filling these up, shaking them down. I like to do them loosely in my jars and then just pop them through here. Break them down and break them up to my 1-inch space. So I'm going to go ahead and finish filling these jars, and then I'll get back with you when it comes time to filling up the liquids. Okay, y'all, so I told you about my estimate. I had 7 pints. I actually filled 6. So I have 1 I set aside. So now I'm going to take my hot clean water and I'm just going to add it to my 1-inch headspace per jar. So we're going to get these filled up and come back for the next step. Okay, y'all, so now again, just like all of them, we're going to debubble. Now this one you want to do, ouch, this one you want to do really well. You want to get that center point, break up the mass in the center. You want to get all edges. You want to bring this fluffing out as much as possible so that everything can get circulation and cooked in between the whole jar. Now again, this is going to take and lower your liquid. I knew it would do this, so you're going to add more before you seal it, but it's better to do this and make sure you've got it right than not have it right and not cook, and you want to be able to be safe. So I encourage you, and matter of fact, on these, because they can be dense, I tend to do this twice. After I do it the first round, I'll do it a second round just to make sure. So I'm just going to go through each jar. I'm going to break up in the center of my jar to make sure all my greens are distributed, and you can pretty much see, well, you can't see it too well as much as I can, but I'm watching my liquid go down as I'm breaking up these greens. So that tells me I'm reaching that center point, which is okay. This is the reason why I do this twice. So again, I'm going to debubble all the way around. Maybe it's an overkill for doing these twice. A lot of people won't do that. I just like to be safe than sorry. So I'm just about done with this, and I'm going to do it another round after I break these up. And then my last one. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill these and do this one more round, because they went down quite a bit. I knew they would, though. Bring it back up to my 1-inch headspace again. Some of these lost quite a bit of liquid. All right, now I'm going to do this one more time. Again, I just like to make sure that I'm going to be getting my ingredients throughout the whole jar heated through, including that center point. So it looks like I have no more air bubbles, which is good. Oh yeah. Once I do this, I will check it one last time for my headspace, and then we will seal this off. Whoops. Get down in there. Yeah, so far we're good. Oops. Last one. Ooh, that one jumped out. That was hot. Okay. Alright, now it looks like I'm going to have to add some more liquid to it. But that's the reason why I did this the second time, y'all, to make sure. Greens are one of those. I don't usually do that twice on all my other ones, just the greens, because they can tend to compact. So, and like I said, I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and refill these back up. Check my headspace with my canning meter measurement and go from there. So we'll see our 1 inch. Yep. Yeah, and this one here, just a tad more. Now, siphoning. Somebody had asked me a question about siphoning. Siphoning can actually occur for several reasons. One, I mentioned, could be to change of the temperature, which we went through the last canning session. Another reason for siphoning, you could tend to put not enough headspace. You can add too much liquid, and if that were to happen, when you get these jars under pressure, it would seep, and the liquids would seep out, because it tends to come up and out. So it's got to go somewhere, so it'll siphon out of it. As far as finger tight, it looks like in these videos that I'm torquing these down, but I'm only going as far as my fingertips will allow me. Not the rest of my hand, but just my fingertips. Only go until those, you can't turn it no more. That's the only amount you want to do. So now, just like the last round, I'm going to take my vinegar and I am going to clean my jars. Whether it's just regular water and you know there's no fat or nothing, you still want your jars clean. So I do this to all of my jars regardless. I want a clean rim on my jars for my lids to seal and adhered to. Another reason, as someone had also mentioned, is why did my lids did not seal. Okay, I will tell you, in my experience, it's not always the case, but sometimes the case. Could be that you didn't clean off your rims enough and there was just too much grease or whatever, and it just did not seal. Another one, which is kind of rare but has been known to happen, sometimes they will make these products, and honestly, sometimes some of these lids are not like they used to be. So we've had, several of us about a year or two ago, had some issues with some pretty bad canning lids. So it could be one of those two reasons why they did not seal. Another, like my ring on my canner, it could be that maybe your pressure isn't exactly right and it's not creating the seal that these need. So it could be a variety of things. Check your seal on your canner first, and then check your rims. Make sure that you have clean rims. And then the other one is, really, there's nothing you can do. Now, on some of this stuff, if you wanted to, not all of it, because it would become too mushy, such as beans or whatever, or maybe even in your meat. There are times if you wanted to, you didn't get a can, a jar didn't can, you can run it through again and pull the lid off. However, you have to do it the same exact time as you did it the first round. So usually when that happens to me, I will just put them in the refrigerator the next day, or when they are really cool. If they did not seal, I'll put them in the refrigerator, and I'll end up using that first before anything else. So that's usually what I'll do. Now we got my rims on, or my lids. I'm going to put my rings on. And when I hold my jars and it looks like I'm torquing these down, I'm actually holding my jars because they're hot. So I'm just taking it and I'm just doing as much as my fingertips will allow me, and that is it. Look how beautiful these are, y'all. And now they go into my canner. We have 6 jars, and this makes me happy, on top of the 5 that we have. So y'all, we have 11 jars. That's almost a dozen on my shelf towards this winter. Now, like I said, it all adds up. So now I'm going to put this in here. The other part of this, if you find that your lids, when you bring them out of the canner, you find that your lids are loose, please do not tighten them up. Just take them out and set them up on your mat like this and leave them for 12 to 24 hours. Do not try to tighten those lids back down. Just leave them alone. You can actually create more damage by messing with them than just leaving them like they are. So I figured I better tell you that. Everything that I can think of, and from my own mistakes, I'm bringing out so that you know what to do next. So like our last session, now for my PSI, and I will tell you, for everybody, there's an elevation. I believe, less than 100 in my elevation. So everybody has an elevation. Please look up your state and your elevation to know what your PSI should be. Here's an example. There are some people who are 1,000 above sea level. I had to think about that for a minute. Your PSIs may be 15 to 20. Mine is 10 to 11. So please check. I can't tell you what yours is. You can easily find online, find out from your state, and find out what your elevation level is. That will tell you what you need to know. And look at your canning book. Most of your canning books will give you a chart, and if you can't find that chart, go online and Google the elevation for canning and what your PSI should be, because everybody is different, and that is really important. We are not all the same. So now I'm going to go ahead and put my lid on here. Just like the last round, I'm going to get this up to the steam for 10 minutes. Let me bring this up over here for you. That way you can see me this way. So I'm going to get this on there for about 10 minutes again before I start timing my cooking process. These are going to take an hour and 10 minutes, which means this is going to be 70 minutes for pints and an hour and, I think it was an hour and 30 minutes for quarts, which is 90 minutes. So let me go ahead and get my lid right quick. Make sure that's sitting on here right. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to get this going. I'm going to wait for my steam vent up here, steady stream. Once it happens, then I will time it for 10 minutes before I put my stopper on it again. And then I will get this up to 10 to 11 PSI, and I will be timing this for an hour and 10 minutes. For me, that is 70 minutes. So once I get this complete, I will be back with you and we will finish this off. Okay, y'all, I don't know if you can see this steady streaming over here, but I am now setting my timer, and I'm going to go through this one more time, step by step, like my other video, just for reassurance. But this is where you'll set the timer for 10 minutes, and at that point, after the 10 minutes, we'll put on this stopper, and we'll wait for the pressure valve to come up. Okay, so our 10 minutes is up. Now here's where we put the stopper. Again, be careful so you don't get burned here. We wait for that. Wait for our pressure gauge to come up. And I will be figuring this one out. Alright, so I told you there are sometimes I make mistakes. As you just seen, my stopper did not come up. Basically what happened was there's not enough steady stream to bring that up. So I need to redo the 10-minute mark. Thank God I did that before I started basically canning with this. We'll be back once I know for sure that I got the right amount of steady stream. Alright, now we're ready. Our stopper had come up. Now, in case you were wondering what was the sense of waiting the 10 minutes for the steady stream, this is why. Without that thing being able to properly steady stream, it will not create the pressure we need to rise up this pressure button. This way, it wouldn't hold to be able to fill up our gauge to our PSI that we need. So now I am going to add my stopper. The pressure button is now up. I will slowly be adding or decreasing my temp and getting my pressure gauge up to 11, and from there I will be timing this for 70 minutes. Once this is finished, I will turn around and bring you back to the ending process. Okay, y'all, so 70 minutes is up now, and I turned the stove off. Now I'm going to wait for the pressure gauge to come down to 0. This pressure button will completely drop, and the book says to wait at least 5 minutes. I tend to wait 10 minutes before I'll remove off this cap. Then I'll remove the cap. All I'll do is open up my lid instead of taking it completely off to try to keep the pressure of the cool air to hit these jars at once. I try to do everything that I can to prevent siphoning as much as possible, or just do as little as possible. So I'll take this step by step. Right now I'm just waiting for everything to naturally come down. I do not want to force it, so we're just going to wait. This could take 10 to about 20 minutes for everything to come down. Also want to say I sincerely apologize, y'all, for the TV and the last videos. Hubby was home for the holidays and I didn't realize how loud it was. So in the future I will make these videos a little bit more easier to listen to and a lot better experience. So I hold nothing. I don't hold any anger or nothing, y'all. I thank you, and I understand that a lot of you are just doing that just for the love, and you know, I'm just like you. I totally understand. So I'll make sure that these videos are a little bit more pleasant from now on. But in the meantime, we're going to wait until this comes down to complete pressure on its own, and we will be back and I'll show you the next process. Okay, so our pressure button came down. Our pressure gauge is sitting at 0. I'm now going to set my timer for 10 minutes before I even take this cap off the flow tube. So this will ensure that all of the air was still coming out, and I'm trying to decrease as much as siphoning as possible. So after the 10 minutes, I'll be back. Alright, so the 10 minutes is now up. Now I'm going to remove this cap over here, take that off our vent, or the vent area. Now I'm just going to open this. I'm not going to open the lid completely. I'm just going to unseal it, and it's pretty hard. This is a new seal, so it's pretty tight. Ooh. Oh my goodness, this is a tight, good seal, y'all. Okay, so now I'm going to let this sit here for another 10 minutes before I take this off, and then I will let it sit another 10 minutes after the lid is off of it. So we'll be right back. Okay, y'all, so we are now completely finished with this. Now, some of this did siphon. Like I said, you can't always stop it. I wish we could. It all depends on the temp and the weather too. For the most part, it looks like we get some good amount of liquid in here. But here's what our greens look like, if you can see this. Let's see if we can bring this down here to a better look. There, y'all. Here's what our greens look like, and these lids are already starting to pop, so which is a good sign. As you can see, I still have some of that liquid sitting up here. Like I had said, as long as I still have half of that liquid in here, we're doing good. I don't want to see less than half. If that would be the case, these would be going in the fridge once they cooled off. So we're going to get the rest of these put up, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, y'all, and that will conclude this session of our canning. Sometimes, no matter your best interest, you're going to get some siphoning. Pressure canning can be a bit tricky when it comes to this. And like I said, if you lose some, it's quite all right, as long as those seals are completely sealed. Now, a couple things I didn't point last time that I need to point. When I let my jar sit for 12 to 24 hours, and I will usually let mine sit until the next day or the next morning, I will end up pulling my rings off. How I check my lids, and I'll just go ahead and show you on this jar here. I'm actually fixing to use this jar of turkey meat actually for hubby's dinner tonight, but as you notice, I don't have a ring on here. What I do is I'll take my fingers to the top of my lids very quickly. If it holds, that's a good seal. So, and I will do that with all my jars after I remove the rings. Now, I will also wash my jars. Even with siphoning, your jars can get pretty dirty, and I really don't want to put that on my shelf. So I want them as clean as possible around the rim, around here, the whole entire jar. So I will wash mine, then I will label them, and then I will store them on my shelf. Don't ever store them with your rings. Now, there are people who do, and I completely understand. I know it's easier for you, but if I can give you a little bit of information as why it's preferred not to. Number one, it can promote a false seal. If you were to think about your lids, if over time that these lids were to come undone, with that seal or that ring on there, you would not know if that seal came undone or not. So, because that ring will hold it in place. And in the meantime, botulism and all sorts of bad things are happening within that jar, and you won't know until there's a bad stench or when you go to use it. So I encourage you, don't store your jars with your rings on them. Another thing that I do is if I were to double stack mine, and they say it's not preferred to do that, but if I were, I would put a cardboard basing in between my jars, again, to prevent from false sealing happening. So, I'm hoping this information, I'm trying to think of everything that I can, and that's one of the reasons I'm looking at maybe possibly sometime very soon having a one-on-one with you on live. I'm still considering that, so we'll see what happens. I have one more. Now, I did say that I was looking at doing another meal in a jar. At this point, I do have some deer venison or venison meat. It's a roast, actually. So I'm debating if I want to actually take that and cut it into chunks and just make it into meat like this one here, where I can use it in several different meals, or to create meals in it, or both. So that's going to be another round of canning coming soon. Not exactly sure when, but it will be coming soon. So I do have to get that on the shelf as well. I may even be able to ground it up actually and be able to make ground venison in a jar as well. So these may be options, or turn it into chili. There is so many things that I can do with this. I may even break it down for different meals. So we'll have to see what comes up next. But either way it goes, it will be another canning session with you. Maybe not as long, because after I go through each section and you start watching more and more, hopefully you will become more comfortable and understand every step that I'm doing without going into full details. But I'm hoping these are also helping you along the way. Again, I apologize, and I'm hoping this was a much clearer video for you and that you can actually read, hear, and understand better without any distractions on the outside of these videos. I sincerely apologize, y'all. I am trying to make things just as best as I possibly can. So, in the meantime, we will figure out what we're going to do next as far as canning, because we definitely have some work to do. So, much love to each and every one of you from Parton's Heritage Homestead.